Okay, the VCE exam is fast approaching. Maybe you've been studying like crazy all year and you're feeling really on top of everything, but let's be real, you're probably at least a little bit panicked and you're wondering if there are any study techniques that you can implement now at the last minute that will help whip you into shape for the exam and give you a better chance of achieving the ATAR that you've been hoping for. That's what we're covering today. I'm going to break down some of the study techniques that might just help you boost your marks last minute. So let's jump right in and we'll go section by section. Section A, your text response area of study. Of course, you can continue writing practice essays and refining the essays you already have. But let's be honest, if you're feeling behind, writing a couple of practice essays probably won't save you or dramatically increase your knowledge and skills. Plus, if you're studying for exams, you just mightn't have the time and energy to churn through a million practice exams. So let's talk about what you're going to do instead. Firstly, one of my favorite study techniques that will help you prepare for any essay question you might get asked: CTEC tables. I've covered this strategy in more depth elsewhere, so go and check out those videos. But rather than memorizing a whole practice essay before an exam and then just hoping and praying that it will work with the essay prompt you're given, try this. You're going to make a big old table that looks like this. In the left column, you'll jot down all of the core themes, ideas, or concepts that your text explores. C in CTEC stands for concept. Have a look over some sample essay prompts to figure out what kinds of concepts they're asking you to discuss in your essays and let that guide the way you structure these notes. Then in the next column, you'll list out all of your favorite quotes or examples from your text. So if you were asked a question on this concept, what quotes would you use? The next column is for techniques. Jot down any literary techniques being used or any film techniques if you're analysing a film. Remember, one of the core things your essay is being marked on is your use of meta-language, so make sure you're incorporating terminology that helps you unpack how an author or director has constructed their text, referencing things like language techniques, film devices, characterization, symbolism, setting, etc. I'll link below a couple of blog posts we have to give you word banks of the kinds of meta-language you can use in your essays. Finally, in the effect column, explain the quote or example the way you would in an essay. Try and link it back to the concept you listed over on the left. Try and break down at least 3 to 4 quotes per theme, but you could also do this for as many quotes as you have. Back in the left-hand column, you can write down anything you might want to say about that concept. If you were asked a question on this topic, what kind of insights would form the basis of your contention? If this is tricky for you, stay tuned because I have another tip on this later. This technique breaks down all of the content in your essays into chunks. So rather than memorizing a whole practice essay, you revise this content in a manageable way. These are the building blocks and you can arrange them to suit a new prompt. Once you have this all laid out, just pop the elements together and then bam, you have an essay. Next, we're going to write some essay plans, so get a hold of as many essay prompts as you can find. Firstly, you want to figure out what kind of prompt it is. We have a blog on the 5 types of essay prompts that I'll link below. Is it a theme-based prompt, asking you to discuss one of the key themes or ideas explored in the text? Is it a quote-based prompt, or is it asking you to focus on a particular character? Maybe it's a how-based prompt. Figure out what the question is asking you because each kind of prompt will lend itself to a different essay structure. Maybe you'll be walking your marker through 3 of the key themes explored in the text, or maybe you'll have a 3-part argument in response to a discuss prompt. Go through the prompt, think about all of the content you laid out in your CTEC tables, jot down your ideas, organize those ideas into a 3-body paragraph structure, and as for your contention, summarize those 3 key points into 1 to 2 sentences. Then move on to the next prompt. Since you don't have a lot of time left until the exam, rather than writing 1 to 2 full practice essays, this strategy will help you feel more prepared for whatever the exam might throw at you. My final text response tip. If you're struggling to develop a perspective on your text or figure out what you actually think about it, that's what we're going to focus on. This technique might sound simple, but it can actually be a super powerful way of approaching text response revision. This is what you'll do. We're going to make another table. Clearly, I love a table, but you can structure these notes in whatever way works for you. Return to that list you made of the key themes or concepts explored in your text and pop those in the left column again. In the next column, jot down the terms you might relate to that concept. So say you're doing Sunset Boulevard and you've organized your quotes and examples around the theme of illusion and reality. If you were asked a question in an exam on, delusion, lies, manipulation, you might think about linking those terms back to the theme of illusion and reality. This is primarily to prompt you to connect the terminology you might see in an essay question to the notes you made in your CTEC tables. Next, you're going to write down everything you know about this theme. This is where the simple approach really takes shape. Write down absolutely everything you think the author or director might be saying about this topic. So you might say that Wilder wants to highlight that Hollywood is a place full of delusional people. Maybe fame compels people to have a deluded self-perception. Maybe that the film industry is built on creating fantasy worlds for people, and that the glitzy and glamorous facade of fame is actually an illusion. In reality, fame is awful. Whatever it is, write it down, literally anything you can think of to say. Once you've exhausted your ideas for that theme, go over the list and figure out which ideas are the strongest. Highlight them, refine your phrasing. This will help you draw out the best ideas to share about your text, and these are the insights that can help you form the basis of your contention or your 3-body paragraphs. Section B. When it comes to the creative writing section on the exam, most students don't actually know how to prepare. Some students write one creative piece and they plan to memorize it so that when they walk into the exam room, they can just replicate it regardless of what the stimuli looks like. Other students think that because you won't know what the stimuli looks like until you walk into the exam room, there's no use preparing for this section. Both strategies suck, and I'll tell you why before I tell you what to do instead. I'm bringing back this strategy from the last-minute exam tips video I made last year because so many of you said that it was helpful. On the exam, you'll be given a title that you must base your piece on, and you'll be given 3 stimulus prompts. You need to refer to at least one of them. You're being marked on your ability to respond to the title and the stimuli you've been given. So if you walk into the exam with a piece memorized, even if it's the most beautiful piece of writing that anyone has ever read, if the connection between your writing and the stimuli is loose, you will be marked down for it. And on the other hand, if you don't prepare for this section, even if you're the best writer in the world and you think really well on your feet, there's just no way you'll be able to craft something that scores top marks. So what are you going to do instead? Well, you won't know what the title of your piece will be until the exam, and you won't know what the stimuli will look like, but you do know what your framework of ideas is. So I'm going to show you how to build a range of ideas that fits within your framework so you'll be prepared for whatever the exam might throw at you. I made a video that breaks down all of the core thematic frameworks. It unpacks the ideas that your framework is asking you to consider, and it gives you some ideas that you can draw from in your own writing. It also goes through some of the sample responses written by students on their exam last year that VCAR has given us because they are exemplars of the kind of work that you could produce. So go check that video out. So we start by interrogating the ideas of your framework, writing down all of the core themes and concepts associated with it. Then we figure out which of those ideas resonates with you most. From there, we can build a whole arsenal of ideas for your writing. For this activity, we want to start with a no restrictions brainstorm for any and all concepts that you associate with your framework. So if you're working on writing about country, you might say climate change, deforestation, mining or fossil fuels, destruction of animal habitats, First Nations connections to land, colonization, dispossession, land rights, migration, belonging versus exclusion, cultural displacement, being homesick. Then, see if you can interrogate these issues further. Look into the key themes of the mental texts you read, or look online to see what people are saying about these topics. See if you can determine the core concepts your framework wants you to explore. For writing about country, it might be something like considering First Nations connections to land, history of dispossession in Australia, the ongoing battle for land rights. Ask yourself questions like, what does it mean to experience connection to country? What does it mean to live on stolen country? You might choose to explore the genre of climate fiction, writing about the impacts of global warming and environmental destruction on humans, ecosystems, even writing from the perspective of an animal, a tree, a rock, or a cockroach. So you could ask yourself, what do I imagine the world will look like in 2, 20, 50, 100 years from now? What could be done to avert the climate crisis, and what would climate action look like? What do you feel when you think about the future? Do you feel a sense of dread, or do you see hope? And if so, where does that hope lie? You could consider the experiences of migrants or refugees and think about what it would mean or what it has meant for you to leave behind the environment you're used to and relocate somewhere else. You could think about the trauma or the excitement or the struggle of finding a sense of belonging or the value in forging new communities and connections in new places. Ask yourself, what makes you feel connected to a particular place? When you think about a place or a physical location that makes you feel a sense of belonging, what comes to mind? You could think about land management techniques and the debate around how humans should treat the earth, writing about anything from indigenous land management practices to the practices of fossil fuel and mining companies to the effect of drought on farmers living in regional areas. This kind of ties together some of the previous points, but you could ask yourself, what is a place that matters to me? Why? What needs to be done to protect or preserve that environment? What do people need to do? Who could we learn from? What kinds of stories do you carry with you from other places? Or how does country respond to the way humans treat their environment? The list goes on, and the ideas that I've mapped out are not exhaustive by any means. But now that you've mapped that out, even though you don't know what the stimuli on the exam will be, you can safely assume that it will relate to one of those core concepts. Go step by step. Ponder each of the ideas that your framework wants you to consider and see if you can develop an idea for your writing that responds to it. What stands out to you? When you ask yourself those questions, what came to mind? Having a backlog of ideas to draw from is really useful because it will take some of the thinking and the panic out of the equation when you're sitting the exam. But even if you don't develop these ideas, it's really important that you have a strong grasp on the kinds of concepts that the exam will get you to consider. Lastly, remember, your work can be in any form, excluding poetry or verse. It just needs to have a clear purpose to explain, to express, to reflect, or to argue. So think about your purpose and consider your audience and your context. You might want to write a persuasive essay, but from the perspective of a fictional character for a fictional context. Get creative. Section C. Inevitably, the best way to prep for Section C is going to be practicing your language analysis skills and writing practice essays. But let's break down exactly how you can go about focusing your attention on the skills you want to refine so that you can go about studying in the most efficient way possible. When it comes to the analysis stage of a language analysis response, there are essentially two core skills that you want to focus on refining. Your general reading comprehension and ability to pull out an author's contention, purpose, and audience, and your understanding of persuasive language devices and ability to identify how an author has used them in their writing. When it comes to the writing stage, there are also essentially two key skills: your ability to structure your thoughts clearly and your ability to explain your analysis well. If you're short on time, it pays to start by identifying the skills you're lacking in the most and focusing most of your attention on refining that area. Let me give you some tips. For the analysis stage, there are a few key things to keep in mind, which I'll get into in a second. But for the most part, there's no real shortcut here. Practice really does make perfect. Luckily, we have an entire series of videos where we've analysed articles from past VCE exams, taking you step by step as we break down each element. So if you're short on time or the energy you need to analyse all of those past exams yourself, go over and watch those videos. As for those general points that you want to remember, firstly, make sure you understand the difference between issue, contention, and purpose. It sounds simple, but it's a mistake that a lot of students make. The issue is the problem that the author is addressing. The contention is the core argument that the author is trying to persuade their audience of. The purpose is the thing that they want their audience to do, or the reason why they're trying to persuade their audience. In the case of the speech used for last year's exam, the issue is that the local gym has lost the council funding that it needs in order to stay open, so the gym's board members are considering partnering with a lolly shop. The author's contention is that the conflicting values of the two businesses, the gym and the lolly shop, could be reconciled if audience members reframe their perceptions. The author's purpose is to persuade gym members to set aside their concerns for pragmatic reasons and to vote in favour of the proposal. Many students rush this stage in their analysis, so the rest of their analysis is built on incorrect ideas. So when you're writing your introduction, make sure that you establish all of these elements really clearly. When it comes to analysing persuasive techniques, a lot of students find that while they might be able to identify persuasive techniques in a text, they don't know how to explain why an author has used those persuasive devices or how they've used them to persuade their audience. If this is you, remember not to overcomplicate things. In fact, if you really think about it, persuasive techniques are everywhere, from social media to advertising to friendly conversation. So you probably intuitively understand what the author is trying to do. I'll give you an example. Say we're sitting in class and I turn to you and say, "You're my smartest friend. I'm really stuck on this question and I need help." If we were to break down this example like we would in language analysis, I've complimented you. I'm trying to get you to feel a sense of pride in your intelligence so that you might in turn feel compelled to help me. It's that straightforward. And if you apply the same kind of logical thinking to your language analysis, you'll be able to uncover the best examples to use in your essays. We'll be covering our language analysis study strategies in a lot more depth in our How to Write a Killer Language Analysis Study Guide, which will be coming out soon, so keep your eyes peeled. So you've done your analysis perfectly. Now what? When writing your language analysis essay, just remember the T rule. This stands for technique, example, effect. If you put it together in a sentence, it would go, technique is shown in example, which creates effect. If you use that formula as a base and you build on it using the analysis you've done, you'll be hitting on the criteria. So for the example we just mentioned, you might say something like, the compliment, "You're my smartest friend, I'm really stuck on this question and I need help," positions the audience to feel a sense of pride in their intelligence, which may in turn compel them to assist their friend. Easy, right? So as you go through past VCE exams or sample texts your teacher has given you, have a go at applying these tips and you'll watch your language analysis get less complicated each time you do it. Okay, that is my last minute study advice for your VCE English exams. I wish you all the very best of luck. Please remember that the marks you get won't define you at all, but you've been working so hard this year, you deserve to get results that reflect the effort you've put in. So don't give up now, every little bit counts until you're over the finish line. Drop me a comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time.